All right, so in the last video, we were talking about Aristotle's ontology, and we ended up by saying, look, there are four main things in the universe. There are particular and universal substances and particular and universal properties. And we said that particular substances are the most fundamental of all those things. So what really is a particular substance, right? So we know my dog, you, Socrates, all of these things are particular substances. But what are we like? I mean, what is it that keeps us all together? What is a particular substance? Why is this an important and fundamental thing? Well, first, Aristotle claims that these particular substances are natural things. Humans, dogs, so on and so forth, right? They're natural things. But Aristotle means something a little strange by natural, right? When we use the word natural, we're normally referring to organic products or scenes in nature or something like that. That's not what he means at all, right? When he's using natural, he means something very specific. He means that we have if we're a natural being, there's a principle within ourselves of motion and stability. Right? There's a principle of motion and stability in place, and growth and decay or an alteration. That comes from the physics. So what does this mean? Well, it means we have a principle within us, right? It means we have a type of organization such that our bodies can maintain a certain organization of our parts. And so all natural things have this. All natural things have some type of principle which maintains the proper organization of their parts. So think about what a human does all the time, right? So we add matter to our bodies through eating. We lose matter through excretion. We regenerate cells. If we get a paper cut or a small enough cut, right, even with a knife, but if it's a small enough cut, we heal from those wounds just naturally, right? We don't need any outside source to help us do these things. This is because we're a natural being. Our body has a principle that maintains our stability through all this change. It maintains this particular organization of our matter, right? We don't suddenly, right, if somebody chopped our arm off, right, we wouldn't suddenly grow a new one. It wouldn't grow into a horse's leg popping out of our elbow all of a sudden, right? There's a very particular organization we have as humans, and insofar as the injuries aren't crazy like having your arm chopped off, the body does a pretty good job of maintaining that organization all by itself. Right? When drastic things happen, the body's not strong enough. We have to step in and help it, right? So if you get struck with a particular illness or a severe injury, right, then the body can't do enough to heal from those things. But generally, the body does a really good job of maintaining its organization, even through the crazy amount of changes we go throughout our lives. So that's what we mean here when we're saying we're a natural being. We're the type of being that can maintain our organization. Now, we know we're natural entities. We know we have some principle within us. We haven't specified what it is yet, but we know we have something in us that maintains this organization. So now we should ask about what that principle is, right? So we know we're natural. That gives us a principle that maintains the organization, but what is that principle? Well, before we can really truly give that, we have to look at two more ingredients of Aristotle's Metaphysics. And he says, look, each substance or object, each particular substance has two primary constituents. It's matter and its form. And this is a pretty easy distinction to understand, although the form is a little bit weird. So pay attention to that. All right, so with matter, it's just the constituent parts. Right? It's all the things that have to be put together in order to generate an object. Right? So for the human, there's some skin, bones, nails, a brain, heart, kidney, so on and so forth. And you can break those things down further into their sort of bit components, right? And you could have a pile of all of that matter. Right? But it's not yet a human, right? A human isn't just generated once you pile all of that matter together. You have to also give it form, right? And so the form of a human is what takes all of that matter and structures it or gives it its proper organization. So when Aristotle is using the word form, he doesn't mean it anything like what Plato was saying, right? When he's talking about the form, he's talking about the principle or thing that organizes a being so that it's structured or organized properly. And another way of thinking about this is if you just had matter all by itself, you would only have a potential being, right? The pile of all of those things, you might say, look, if you organize those properly, you'd have a human. But right now, all that matter just in a big pile on the floor, that's only a potential human. The form is what actualizes that human being, right? It takes all of that matter from its potential human state to its actual human state. It takes that pile of parts and puts them in the proper order so that a human is generated. Okay, so then same as we said with the substances and accidents, right? Which is more fundamental here? Which, the form or the matter, which one of these makes up your primary principle of motion and rest? Right? That's, remember, follow the trail of the question we're asking here, right? We're natural, and so that means there's a principle within us. Okay, well, we know it comes from either matter or form. Well, Aristotle's going to say, look, it really does come from both of these things. Right? Both your form and matter make up the nature of a thing. However, the form is the nature of a thing more than the matter is. And that's because of that actual versus potential thing I was just mentioning to you. Right? When you have, you can't inspect the nature of a thing without any matter, right? Because if there's no matter there, then there's nothing for the form to actualize or realize. So you need the matter to understand this thing's nature. But if you just had matter, that wouldn't be enough, right? You just have a pile of stuff, of potential stuff. The form is what makes it actual, what takes that lump of stuff and organizes it. And so that's really where the nature lies. The nature is more in the form, but you need the matter there too, otherwise there's nothing for the form to even organize in the first place. Okay, so we still haven't really answered the fundamental question, right? What is our nature? We found out now from everything I just said in this last slide how to identify something's nature, right? If it's a natural thing, it has a principle of motion and rest, and you can find that primarily in its form. So what does that mean for our particular nature as human beings? Well, Aristotle says humans are rational animals. Why would he say that? Well, because it's essentially the one thing that separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. Right? So think about a certain set of abilities, right? So most animals have eyesight, so they have that type of sense perception, but even if they don't have particular eyesight or eyesight that's as good as ours, right, they still have different means of sense perception. They have different ways of perceiving their environment through their senses. So we share that with animals, so that doesn't set us apart. You might question if animals have memories, but clearly at least animals like cats and dogs have memories, and animals that are even more advanced than them have memories. So it's not like memories set humans apart. So humans share both senses and memories with the animal kingdom. So what's left? What really makes us different? Well, Aristotle thinks there are two more things out there, experience and reason. Right? And we have both of those. So let's think about what experience and reason are, because he's using these slightly differently as well than you might normally think they're used. Experience is like a medical practitioner. Reason is like a medical theorist, right? So the medical practitioner is somebody who doesn't understand the underlying theory of why the medications work, but they've dealt with medical procedures so often that they know the correlation between symptoms and cures, right? So if you come in with these particular symptoms, they know they can cure you with this medication, even though they don't understand the underlying science behind why that medication cures your symptoms. But so that's what experience is, right? It's a practical type of expertise. reason goes beyond that, right? Reason is like the medical theorist. If you have reason, you understand those correlation things that the practitioner understood, but you also understand the theoretical underpinnings of things. You also understand why that medication cures, in addition to knowing that it will cure. Right, so there's a question, are these both unique to humans or not? There's some debate about whether or not we share experience with animals. So that might be some overlap. And we can argue about that if we need to, but we don't really, that doesn't seem like a fruitful discussion because we already clearly know that we don't share reason in this sense with other animals, right? So animals might get really good at seeing like correlations between things and pulling that out of their memory, at least the very advanced animals. But clearly these animals don't have reason. They don't have the type of intelligent aptitude that the medical theorist has and that all humans are capable of having should they develop it. Right, so reason is really what sets us apart, and that gives us our particular nature. And so that's why Aristotle thinks we are the rational animal, and that definition of being the rational animal is what our nature is. Our nature is to exercise rationality. It's to use that intelligence we have that sets us apart from the rest of the animal kingdom. We need to use that intelligence to read into the intelligible structure of the world, right? So reason is very important. It allows us to come to know deep truths about how the universe is structured. And at this point, Aristotle gets into his four main causes. So there are four things that cause an object to be. We can run through this pretty quickly, right? There's the material cause, the formal cause, the efficient cause, and the final cause. The material cause is literally just what's that thing made up of? What's the components that make it up? The formal cause is what's the essence of a thing? What's the definition of that thing? The efficient cause is what produced this thing or began its generation. This is what we normally call a cause in our language. And then there's the final cause. What is the thing's function or purpose? And Aristotle thinks all four of these causes come together to produce a being. So let's see how that might work with an example of a human. And so the material cause of the human is just that lump of material we were talking about before. It's all the different parts that make up a human. The formal cause, your essence, what you are, is a rational animal, right? So now we can see how those two things come together to cause you, right? You need the material, you need the essence of this thing. There's the efficient cause. Aristotle would say it's the soul or the form that generates us, right? The form is the thing that organizes. So the form is the thing that organizes this material in accordance to your essence, right? So that's why these three causes are all coming together. Aristotle said it was the form that generates us. We might say something nowadays about the biological process of procreation, but either way, right? This is the thing that's causing the material cause and the formal cause to all come together in the correct way. And then finally, there is the final cause. And so this is our nature or function. And we already know what that is because we know what our essence is. It's the rational animal, right? So our final cause is to exercise rationality and use our intelligence to read into the intelligible structure of the world. And why do we do this? Well, it's to emulate the unmoved mover, and we'll talk about what that means later. But now hopefully you're seeing how all this works, right? We know we're a rational animal, and so we know if with any object in the universe, if we can find these four causes, we can completely explain how it came to be. But you need these four things to explain how an object is generated. In the next video, we'll quickly go over these differences from Plato, but why did I just go through these causes, right? So the final cause is the most important. We've now discovered what our nature is. It's to use our reason to read into the intelligible structure of the world. But what gives us our final cause or our particular function? And here we need to get into some notion of the unmoved mover, and that will be the content of the next lecture. Thank you, everybody.